Good day, everybody. This is Dr. Serge, and welcome to another episode of Search for the Truth. And our goal is to empower people with information, with knowledge, to take in charge of their own health issues and reverse those health problems naturally. And today, I'm really excited to have my following guest, Mr. Jake. Good evening for you, I believe.
Yes, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So thank you for joining me. I know you're a busy guy. And we're going to talk about the topic, like you said before we started, that people don't really talk about, don't really consider actually they can be helped. And we're going to talk about eye issues. And you are the pro, so we're going to get started. So first of all, I would like to know a little bit more about you, yourself, and why you have this passion for the last, you said 20 years about eye issues and helping people recovering from eye problems.
So the short version is I used to be an analyst, stock trader, investor, still currently, and I had terrible eyesight. I had -5 diopters, high myopia, affected a lot of my youth. And then in my early 20s, I went to the optometrist once, and they said I needed strong glasses. I asked why. They said it's mysterious, it's genetic, we don't know. And I'm not a doctor, I'm not an optometrist, but I'm an analyst by profession. So genetic didn't sound right. And this was before the internet was as easy as it is now. So I went to libraries and I did research, and I found out that myopia, nearsightedness, short-sightedness, isn't a mysterious medical condition at all. It's entirely caused by environment and $100 billion industry that is basically not telling us the truth. And it turned into a bit of a saga because I was retired. I had nothing else to do. I was traveling. I was visiting optometrists. I started trying to figure out how to reverse this. And it became a passion just because they were so resolutely, authoritatively against this whole information that I just hung on to it.
So good. So what are the different types of eye issues that you can help people with?
So I deal with myopia. That's nearsightedness or short-sightedness when you need glasses to correct distance vision. There's lots of other eye issues, of course, but that's the main thing that we deal with, which now happens with kids younger and younger and younger because the iPad use and screen use has gotten so rampant.
So why do people have bad eyesight? You kind of said something a few minutes ago. So I'm asking because it's a bit my story as well. So my dad's family, they all wear glasses. My mom's family, they all wear glasses. My brother, my sister, they all wear glasses. I mean, everybody wears glasses in my family, and I started wearing glasses when I was very young as well. And it's genetic. There's nothing you can do. You're gonna wear glasses for the rest of your life. And I get a prescription that I get stronger and stronger over time as I go see my doctor. So, what are the main causes of eyesight problems?
So the biology is super easy. And I always encourage people to go to scholar.google.com. That's Google's search engine just for clinical science. Whenever you hear some random guy on the internet saying that some industry is selling you something that you don't need, I always like Google Scholar. Very simple. I try to keep this to the 5-minute version of selling glasses is $100 billion a year industry. It is massive. And the lenses in your glasses that you're currently wearing cost $2 to $5 wholesale. So whatever you're paying is likely a thousands of percent markup. It's incredibly profitable. And the theme is recurring symptom treatment, not looking at the underlying cause. And cause is super simple. There's two things that happen. Your eye is a fluid-filled ball, right? In the front is a flexible lens, and that lens changes where the light focuses in the back, where the retina is. That process begins the processing of the visual signal. Ball, front lens, back the receiver, and the lens has a circular muscle around it called the ciliary, and that muscle tightens up when you look at something up close to shape the lens. The closer you look, the tighter that muscle gets. Not designed for hours and hours and hours every day of close-up. Eventually that muscle spasms. It's basically like if you take a camera and you put it in manual mode, it's stuck in close-up mode. It's just that muscle is tight. If you go to Google Scholar, pseudomyopia, Pseudo myopia, or NITM, near-induced transient myopia, are going to bring up tens of thousands of search results of only peer-reviewed clinical science. So this is incredibly well known in academia that when your parents first took you to the optometrist, that ciliary, that focusing muscle was stuck. You weren't genetically defective. There was nothing wrong with your eye. It was just a stuck muscle. The second half of the puzzle is they sell you lenses. And the lenses, what they do is they compensate for the stuck muscle being in close up mode and give you back distance vision by moving the light further back in the eye. The eye has a mechanism built into it to adjust its length because it's a fluid filled ball. It's never perfect. So it always checks itself to make sure that the length is correct. This happens till the day you die. And part of that mechanism is the eye checks if any of the light hits in front or behind the retina. If light hits in front of the retina, then the eyeball shortens. If it hits behind the retina, the eyeball elongates. And wearing those distance glasses during close-up causes some of the eye to hit behind the retina and the eye elongates. If you Google Scholar axial elongation, it explains that process. And if you Google Scholar lens-induced myopia, meaning lenses literally cause, myopia literally caused by the treatment, again, tens of thousands of results showing experiments on fish, on birds, on monkeys, and on humans, showing that the eyeball elongates very quickly once you start wearing minus lenses. So this is very well known, but it's completely obscured to the retail optometrist who makes an incredible amount of profit saying it's genetic and selling your glasses.
So I guess that's maybe why the prescription tend to go higher and higher as you get older, because you never fix or address the root cause of the actual myopia.
Yeah, exactly. And what happens is you wear those glasses for a year or two, some of the light hits behind the retina and your eyeball adjusts. How much it adjusts is dependent on your habits and environment, genetics to some degree as well. So some people get incredibly high myopia and others are more lucky. They end up in a, like I ended up at -5 and was pretty steady for a long time. But if you don't get rid of the muscle spasm and instead start wearing glasses, the eyeball will elongate and you become a recurring customer to that $100 billion business.
So at the end of the day, we should never start wearing glasses, right? We should actually look at the root cause.
Yeah, absolutely. Glasses are in most cases for the myopia I described, where you're fine, right? Like this is not onset at baby age. You're already a teenager. Now it's younger and younger because kids get iPads as babysitters. But you're born fine, your eye adjusted fine, and then at some point you started squinting because of too much close up. The muscle stuck. If you start wearing lenses, you become dependent on the lenses as an ongoing symptom treatment.
So you said something about iPads, right? So for people like me, or a lot of people who spend a lot of time in front of a screen, a computer, it could be iPads, could be TV, cell phones. So what do you recommend then to protect our eyes?
Distance is incredibly key. That muscle that shapes the lens in your eye. If you look at something that's 20 feet or 6 meters away, that muscle is completely relaxed. So if you're watching TV, you're not straining that muscle. If you're working on a computer that's at a greater distance, you're
Yeah.
straining that muscle less. The closer you get, the bigger the issue, the harder that muscle has to tense, the more likely it is to spasm. So the worst thing is small screens. Phones are pretty close, right? Because the point of immersion is really close with a small screen. iPad's a little better, screen's a little bit better. Computer screen, TV is much better. And then real distance is ideal. As much time as you can spend with that muscle relaxed and not tight to prevent this muscle spasm.
So it would be a good idea, I guess, to when you work, take a break and look outside the windows and enjoy the landscape, I guess.
That and don't wear distance glasses for close up, right? And that's if your myopia is low enough to where you can take them off and still see your screen clearly. If you always do that, your eyesight will not get quote unquote worse. Very likely. If you have one diopter, you went to the optometrist, you're still at a point where you take them off 60 centimeters, screen distance is fine. If you always take them off, your eyesight won't get worse. If you wear them all the time, then it will, because that axial elongation takes place. So ideal scenario, take them off. If your glasses are already quite strong where you need them even to see the screen, a hack, a bit of a trick is to buy a pair of glasses that are a diopter or so lower. significantly reduces eye strain and significantly reduces that hyperopic defocus. So if you start doing that, if you get a pair of glasses, adopt a lower, wear them for all your screen use, after a month or so, you are not going to be able to go back to wearing full power glasses with the screen without being really uncomfortable, because your strain awareness returns for the lenses.
So this is good information, actually. So for people like me who has been wearing glasses for 25 plus years, um, what can I do to reverse or to help my eyes? So is there any hope for me to not wearing glasses?
I, Absolutely, I think so. And here's kind of where the thing divides. Everything I said up to now is pretty clear in terms of scientific evidence. Like there's not much debate there, except retail optometrists will tell you otherwise, right? But what I found, and now we have a community, our Facebook group has like 20 some odd thousand members. We've got a huge forum. We've got a lot of people that have done this over the past going on 20 years. You can reduce your diopter dependence by about a diopter a year. If you start with better habits, every 3 to 4 months, you should be able to get 1/4 diopter lower diopter correction till you no longer need glasses. Your eyes are fundamentally completely healthy. It's just the eyeball's elongated and you have a lot of eye strain. If you reduce that eye strain and start working on getting that eyeball back to its correct length, over time, you should be able to do that. And I don't know how many diopters you have, but about a diopter a year, you should be able to get yourself back to not wearing those things.
I kind of agree, actually, because I came across Dr. Bates, I believe that was his name, Dr. Bates, 15, 20 years ago. And I was really intrigued by that because I don't remember exactly the story, but back in the days, it would be like he would reverse eye problems with his clients. And I started to use a bit his protocol, and there was some exercises that I had to do and different things like that that he recommended to do. And I did see an improvement in my eyes. The problem I had is I moved and I stopped doing it, but I did see a change, and I had actually to go lower with my prescription. So
The Dr. William Bates was a fascinating guy, optometrist about 100 years ago, when we didn't know much about vision biology and most people weren't wearing glasses yet. His inkling was that we're straining the ciliary muscle. This was figured out in the 16th century. Johannes Kepler said
wow.
this, as far we know, first. Back then, only monks had myopia because monks were the only ones reading, right? So this myopia
I
only
see.
exists for the people that spend a lot of time up close.
Ah,
The thing is, his idea was let's not strain our eyes, and he didn't make friends in the optometry industry, and he got kicked out. And what exists today as Bates method, the eye exercises and stuff, aren't that effective. Exactly what you experienced, since it's not habit based, since you're not addressing things in a way that become habits. It's all eye exercises, and it's fairly tedious. And again,
yeah.
it's 100-year-old idea. It's not super effective. But he was on the right track. Like if that would have been the way forward today, we wouldn't be wearing glasses.
So according to your experience and the science that we know we know today, what is the right track? Any exercise, you said it was not quite effective, but anything we can do to help the eyes?
The first thing is really measuring your eyesight. So what happens is the diopters of your glasses are a mysterious number to most people, but it's just a distance to blur. All the things that the optometrist does in writing things down in prescription, the big charade is just how far can you see before things get blurry? You can
Yes.
literally take a measuring tape and a book and go, the text is cleared this close with the book, and slowly move it further away until you see any amount of blur, the smallest amount of blur. Measure the distance in centimeters. 100 divided by the distance equals the diopters of your glasses.
I
So
see.
basically, for example, if you can see the book perfectly clearly to 50 centimeters, 100 divided by 50 is 2. So you would need 2 diopter glasses to have perfect vision. That's all you need. So you can self prescribe. And by the way, these are only prescriptions because millions of dollars were spent in lobbying to make them prescriptions to protect the profit margins. But you can literally measure this at home. And I always recommend people spend like a week, just measure in natural daylight where that distance will be greater. Your vision's better in natural daylight compared to crappy office lighting, compared to you eating healthy, right? Like if you have a big insulin spike, that number will go down, your vision will be worse. If you're
Yeah.
stressed, the vision will be worse. If you're not sleeping well, your vision will be worse. And just keep a little log of the numbers, because that makes it from an abstract topic of, well, it sounds interesting, to you're actually playing with it. And then you're seeing that the diopters you would need kind of go up and down. And then buy yourself a pair of glasses for your computer. Just a diopter or a diopter and a half lower, and realize sitting in front of the computer, you can see perfectly clearly to the screen, but not much further. And then just play with that experience. Move the screen further a little bit back to where your eyes are tiny little bit challenged. And then realize that you can still see as long as you take breaks. And you do that for 3 or 4 weeks, and your vision will be noticeably better. You'll be able to push the screen further away and still see clearly. And at that point, you take your distance glasses and reduce them a tiny little bit. Go online, buy the glasses online, or find a supportive optometrist. After a month of being in a safe space where you're just in front of your screen, you're not walking around, you're not driving, you're not doing anything, you're having this experience of you picked your own glasses, then you translate that to your distance glasses, a tiny reduction. And you'll notice at that point, even though you went down, say, a quarter diopter, your vision's the same. And then you go, well, what's up with that? You keep those
Yeah.
for 3 months, and then repeat that entire process over and over and over again till you no longer need your glasses, basically.
Wow, that's fascinating and much easier than what I tried 15 years ago.
It's the problem with this is it's super simple, and there's not much mystique, and it's not profitable, right? Like it takes, there's a learning curve to figure all this stuff out, but I put it all, it's all freely available, right? So you're not having to pay me, and then you're just buying glasses on the way down. So it's not, there isn't a business model that supports teaching people better habits and better eye health, right? Like the money is in the opposite. The money is in keeping people addicted to screens and keeping people ignorant of these facts and keeping people in a place where they're not accountable for their own well-being. And it's just buy the glasses, pay the money, and look at screens.
A few weeks ago, you sent me an article on, I think it was titled "How Badly Are We Being Ripped Off by Eyewear" or something like that. I was really shocked to know that it's mostly a money-making thing at the end of the day. I had no idea that it was a huge industry like that. I mean, I paid $500 for those glasses. It's crazy.
Wholesale, those are, $20 maybe, right? Like it's
Wow.
not. And the other thing is, what I would tell you, because I see the big black frames, is there's lots of other things happening that you could improve about your own life. For one is you have no peripheral vision. So people that have no peripheral vision tend to have some amount of low state anxiety, because your visual cortex says, I can't see what's going on here. You should be able to see, like my hands are almost 180 degrees and I can see them, right? Like your vision is significantly compromised, and you have this big black bar. So your brain
Yeah.
always says something's not right. So that can affect your general mental well-being. You also interact slightly differently because you look at people through the center of that lens. So your
Yeah.
eye movement and your head movement and your neck movement is slightly different than natural. So people perceive you as a little bit different.
Yeah.
And that's, in some ways, we speculate that's how people are. I mean, kids are bullied and treated as nerds and become introverted, right? Because it literally becomes my social interaction, the mirroring of my social interactions isn't quite right. So the glasses inhibit some of that. Other things is you move through the world different because you have to look down. You don't have peripheral vision, so you can't see the ground. So where other
True.
people may have the head straight, you need to see the ground. So you're walking in this forward position. There's lots of things that you don't realize that are affecting your day to day because you're having to wear those things. And if you reduce your dependence on them, you'll notice a lot of other life factors improving.
Wow, that's fascinating. I never realized what a pair of glasses can actually cause. It can impact the whole body. Crazy. And you mentioned nutrition earlier. That one thing that I realized when I started to do nutrition myself, eating better and taking vitamins, my vision has not changed. I stayed the same for, I don't know, 15 years. Um, what can we do when it comes to diet, nutrition? Any tips in this area?
So the main focus is what we talked about, right? It's the stuck focusing muscle that will solve 90% of the issue. Diet is is a factor. Like if you have diabetes, you have myopia, right? The insulin issues are directly connected to eyesight in some complicated manner that is beyond my understanding, but certainly not eating healthy is not great.
Yeah.
So if you're the type of person who'll have a pizza and drink a Coke, the measurement stuff I was saying, it's interesting to do. In our forum, there's some people who bought the implantable blood glucose meters,
Yeah.
and they compared the eyesight along with insulin changes, and they definitely noted worse eyesight with insulin spikes. So a healthy diet is a good idea. And also, if you have vitamin and mineral deficiencies that can affect your eyesight, not my topic. That is definitely more your area. I always recommend people do blood panels, see if you have deficiencies, sort those out, because the eyes are part of the entire system. And if anything's not doing well, eyes can absolutely be affected also.
Correct. So what's your thought of on LASIK? Is that something good to do? Or
Man, okay. So I have a podcast, but it's only people working on the eyesight. So it's not that exciting of a show, right? Like we only talk to people who are working on their own eyesight. I had one guest on that was just outside of that, Dr. Morris Waxler. He's the former head of the FDA surgical divisions. He himself got LASIK approved. He is the guy at the FDA who got LASIK approved. He's in his 70s now. He's got this big Einstein hair going on. We had an hour-long episode. Again, the former head of the FDA surgical division for an hour spent talking about how this was the worst thing he did in his life. And he's been campaigning ever since to have that decision reversed, to no avail. He said 30% risk of permanent dry eyes. He talked about suicides because of LASIK. He talked about things like you're cutting the cornea. So the integrity of the eyeball is compromised. You're cutting the nerves. So pain sensations are gone. It might take a year for the sensation of pain to return. And at that point, it may return and it may be ongoing. He said, literally, the FDA only had two factors to approve LASIK. One was, and I'm quoting him, somebody can read the 2020 line on eye chart, which he says doesn't mean you have good vision. And number two, and he said this, that your eyes didn't fall out of your head. No medical consequence requirements were part of the FDA studying LASIK before it was approved. So whatever medical consequences you might experience were not part of any of the trials the FDA did, says the man who got LASIK approved. So he is extremely outspoken that this is a very bad idea. He talks about things like the flap that they cut doesn't necessarily ever heal. There's all kinds of just, it's a super interesting episode. I don't want to plug my podcast. I'm a terrible interviewer. I didn't do the thing any justice. But if you think about doing LASIK, do yourself a favor and listen to that man first, just in case, right? And then if you still want to do it. Just realize that the FDA didn't check that stuff out well before it was approved.
wow, I had no idea about this. It seems so simple. Everybody does LASIK. It's so common. It's so affordable. You believe that it's safe because it has been approved, but there's
It's shocking, right? And I'm because I'm fairly mainstream. My parents are both doctors. I don't do conspiracy stuff, despite the fact that I talk about eyesight. I'm a pretty centrist, sort of believing, trusting guy. Hearing him talk was shocking to me. Like it messed up my worldview, because this is not just a guy. It's not just a doctor with an opinion. This is the man who sat inside the FDA and watched
yeah,
the
yeah.
process. He said LASIK surgeons act like cowboys. They were using devices that were never meant or approved for LASIK. He says we have no control over them. Like, it's worth listening to him. And now every time I see the word FDA, I'm a little bit like, I wonder what else goes on there. Like, it was shocking for sure.
When you open that can of worms, it can be pretty shocking and scary, actually, because I used to work in that industry, and things that I heard and seen, it's unbelievable, as you may suspect. What about cataracts? This is a question that people ask me almost every week. I have cataracts. Is there anything I can do, or I need surgery? Is that your
That
school? Is that your area of expertise, or
No, I don't deal with medical conditions. I'm
yeah,
not a doctor, and myopia is not the way I see it is not a medical condition. Like, it's a perfectly healthy eye that's
yeah,
adjusted to what you put in front of it. However, our forum is full of nerds, and people are like self-making eye drops that are there's ingredients apparently that will dissolve cataracts that have worked on dogs and that are currently in trials in various places in Russia. Apparently, there's something going on. So it seems
Wow.
that we're not super far away from maybe, again, I don't know, but it seems that eye drops that could dissolve them may be coming. But other than that, I don't know. Like I'm fascinated that surgery for it exists. I think that modern medical science sometimes is amazing. The fact that you can
Yeah,
implant a lens and it works is super cool. But if I had cataracts, I would probably try to hold off and see what's on the horizon there.
exactly. So, as a final word, what would you recommend? What would you say to somebody who wear glasses? Where to start or what to do? So, what's your thought as
A couple of things. One thing is what I mentioned to you is you're not realizing how much your life is impacted by these. Most people I talk to, I stop talking to people about this who aren't asking, is they're resigned to this and they're self-limiting and they're not realizing the potential. Like I kite surf, and I never thought I could do that. Like I thought I'm clumsy. I'm amazed that my body can do this stuff. If you give your body vision back, it's very cool what it can do. Starting with measuring, because the empowering thing is you measure and you realize light affects your eyes, your diet affects your eyes, your lifestyle affects your eyes. You start to be like, I could pick my own glasses because the mystery is going away on what diopters mean. And once you make it there, you're in a place where you can direct your own future as far as your lens dependence. So realizing that there's a lot more to health than just popping these things on and then measuring will really kind of put you on an interesting journey, possibly.
do we have a question for Miss Jocelyn here? I'm going to put it on the screen. So, what are your thoughts on technology use and eyesight, or those that have a 20/20 all their life? Then, with age, it changes.
So what happens is, again, this is not mainly my area, but presbyopia is the most common thing that happens with age. The
Yeah.
lens slightly hardens. So what happens, it's a flexible lens and it bulges out for near vision. It Since it hardens a little bit, the muscle has to work harder to shape the lens for close up. And what is done really commonly, especially in Western countries, is people get reading glasses. They're plus lenses. They do the opposite of what you need for myopia. They move the light in this direction, like away from the retina, making it so the lens doesn't have to be moved as much. So the muscle has to work less hard and you get clear vision up close. The root cause, though, is the lens hardens a little bit. The problem with the reading glasses is you become dependent on them very quickly.
Yeah.
Because if you avoid reading glasses, you keep working that muscle. You keep working that muscle. You keep the lens flexible as much as possible. So you that interaction is super helpful. Once you start wearing reading glasses, they do the work instead of the lens. Now the lens can harden further, and now you need the reading glasses to see. So I always recommend that people either delay reading glasses or get the lowest possible plus amount and only use them when they really need them. Otherwise, you're going to absolutely depend on them in the future.
I see. Well, thank you for that. So, actually, thank you, Mr. Jake, for your time. That was really fascinating. I learned a lot today on eyesight. Um,
I,
Thank you for your time, and hope you come back again one of those, 2022, to give us more information on eyesight.
awesome. I really appreciate you having me on.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time, and have a good rest of the day for you.
Okay, you too.
Thank you.